council members.
Wing wave, c'est non.
Non, j'entends rien.
Ouais. J'ai réallumé mon micro, ben.
Ça rend tout. Rien. Non.
Je ne sais pas s'il y a un reset ou un bouton, ben, je vais dire, regarde, non. Ah! Elle dit que oui. OK. C'est bien.
We've had technical difficulties. Before we begin, I want to read a few notes and then we'll have a discussion. Good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to discuss one issue, borrowing for a construction project of Town Hall. During last week's discussion, there were several statements made with energy and passion. Although I believe that debate on any question is good, I ask you all to speak respectfully. Last November, Council voted in favor of initiating a process to obtain a construction estimate that we recently received. In light of this estimate and other associated project costs, nearing a total of $7 million, I believe that this isn't the right time to undertake this project. After weighing the pros and cons, I believe that other projects are more important for our citizens. The town has several investment needs in aging infrastructure that benefit our citizens, such as roads, storm sewers, the fire hall, the arena, etc., that are, in my view, more important. In addition, economic development efforts that are able to contribute to the town's growth are also a primary concern for me. The project's impact on the town's budget that will reduce leeway weighs heavily in my assessment. I believe that for a project of such scope to go forward, it must be a project without other options. In my opinion, there are options to reevaluate, and the town should undertake means to consult the public before proceeding on this issue. Lastly, there is an unpredictable factor, the pandemic. It has not only upwardly impacted construction costs, it has provoked instability in the availability of materials and labor. Last Friday, Public Health advised of a new challenge on the horizon, the variants of COVID-19 that have caused rule changes and a third wave that could be worse than the first two combined. As a result of this instability, the significant cost of the project, its impact on the town's budget, and other infrastructure needs, I believe that the construction of a town hall isn't the right option and that the question should be re-evaluated. Thank you. Councillor Bryan. Your Worship, I'm the president of as president of the Assembly, you don't have the right to make those comments. If we are going to deliberate on something, you must leave your chair, but you didn't do that. You should look at the procedures rules because what you have just done is outside of your responsibilities. Thank you, Councillor Bryan. At this moment, we've all received information, and as the treasurer had presented us this presentation, I have spoken. Now it's your turn to speak. Councillor Cormier, and then Councillor Bryan, and then Councillor Galland. I wouldn't, can we read the motion first, shouldn't we? And then have discussions? Do you want to move? I have a motion that we borrow $7 million. Yes, you have it there. But be it resolved that the municipality of Shediac, pursuant to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Act, asks the Commission to borrow capital funds for the municipality as following: administration services generally, construction of a new city hall, 20 years. Be it resolved that the treasurer be authorized in the name of the municipality of Shediac to negotiate this interim financing for the general capital fund and the water fund for authorization from the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation Act. I so move. I see the amount was not indicated when you drafted the resolution. The amount is $6.7 million. That's the amount received officially. So we're going to add that to the motion. For the question, Councillor Laura Galland. Thank you, Your Worship. I spoke to a real estate agent, and they say that the third and fourth floors of the building are for sale for $900,000. The first and third floors were sold for $1.4 million. The total value of valuation is $1,250,000. We've been negotiating with the owners of the building for $3 million, and that's better than $7 million. He is giving us the chance to do repairs as we go on when funds are available, and then we won't be in debt. A borrowing of $7 million will affect additional borrowing. It would be $5 or $6 million at 20%. What will we have left for other projects afterwards? We're in a pandemic, and we don't know what the cost of materials will be. There will be workers as well to be able to propose prices. As Jean-Claude mentioned, should we have a new city hall and half of downtown closed because of the pandemic? We don't know where we're going. We have big projects, sewers and water, and we have to do work on Sebastien Street against floods, and that would be more than $3 million. I'm not sure of the cost exactly. Yes, it was $3 million. Thank you. We have a project on Main Street, which is about $1.7 million, with 7 to 80% for the town, and the rest of the sewer system of Beaubassin. We have some youth that play tennis, but we have mostly adults. And we also need a new fire truck. And in Shediac, we're not in a good position. I'm not finished. The study of a real estate company tells us $6 million to buy this building and renovate it, and $12 million to build a new building. Where are they going with such figures? A building that's already there should cost less money than a new one. I ask councillors to think about what they're doing. We were elected to work for the citizens. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Galland. Councillor Paul Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a comment. I would like to thank the Deputy Mayor, Patricia. This file is very difficult. Since the beginning, it's been hard, so I congratulate you, Patricia, Gilles, Réjean, and the team. That's my first comment. I have some questions, but I saw Patricia has asked them, and mine are similar. I'm going to vote for this motion because this is another step. In the beginning, we wanted a new city hall, either renting or building. We voted unanimously. This is another step. And we're not saying we're going to put the shovel in the dirt tomorrow. We're asking management to go farther and to see if Fredericton and how much we can borrow. So I think we should go with the deputy mayor and get together and study these figures that Laura mentioned, and then we can go ahead. This is another step towards having a new city hall. This is why I'm going this way for this recommendation. I have more questions, perhaps later. Perhaps there's possibility of financing as well. Then there's the library. I can't believe they had gone ahead and said, Antoine, perhaps the financing would be different. We're going to ask the finance director, and I see he's prepared all the good documents for us. So that's my proposal, and I hope this meeting goes on fully as well. Thank you, that's all. Councillor Raymond Cormier. Like Paul, I think this is a step further. And with the pandemic, you look at 2020, we had record construction everywhere in Shediac. COVID really hasn't had much of an impact on construction in Shediac. We've had more this winter. My other question about the pandemic, of course, it's nerve-wracking. In September, remember, when we took the unanimous decision to go further, we announced already a second wave. We've had a first in September, and then we announced a second one. And even with the second wave, we haven't seen a reduction. Now we're looking at a third wave, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. With respect to costs, I like what Councillor Paul says. It gives us a chance to look at the figures. That's very important, because the questions asked to be considered, and you also have to look at the cost of buying this building and renovations and how much that would cost. And then we have to look very closely maintaining the building rather than another one that would be brand new. That's my position. It was in the beginning, it still is. Most Francophone municipalities doesn't own theirs. We're not Dieppe, but most Francophone municipalities own their own city hall, and it's a pride. And if we keep it for 20 years, that's my position. Councillor Germaine Galland, thank you, Your Worship. Today, the vote, it's to go through borrowing and to decide to see if we can firstly borrow. And then if there's a tender, there's nothing that says that we're going to build, right? We can vote for it today on tender, but we don't have to go ahead. No, you give the authority to negotiate borrowing, but if the prices are too high in tender and we're not going to build, now until then, we can negotiate something else with other options. There's nothing that says we can't negotiate with this owner, property owner, or nothing. We could still go through other steps. Yes, we could resubmit the project to the commission, the borrowing commission. So we won't know until we go to tender. That's good, thank you. I agree that we should continue the process. Thank you, Councillor Galland. Deputy Mayor Patricia, firstly, thank you, Paul, and all those who sent me messages respecting my work. And this is my role as a member of council. I was a member of the first committee that analyzed the option to buy or to rent or to build. We discussed many subjects, and we brought them back to council. I did it because I believed in the project. Like Paul said, I think the city should have a new city hall. And for this reason, I believe in the project. I think we should go ahead with it and keep all our options open. But it's important today to go ahead to the borrowing board to borrow for the new construction. I talk a lot about pandemic. I hear a lot about it. And one question I asked about the debt ratio, I asked if ever something happens to the town and we need money, we still have the possibility of borrowing $5 or $6 million. That's what I understood. The 20% is a norm. It's not law. We can go beyond that. So we would have three. If we had other accidents like we had on Sebastian and we needed money, our hands are tied. The scenario that was presented to you was calculated with a growth of 2.5%, which is great for Shediac, and interest rates of 5%. And on the market, they're lower than that, but the province asks us to use 5%. It's a good picture of the municipality today, is what we're presenting to the province. In 6 months, it could be higher or. So you said the 20%. I really don't want to get up there, and I don't think it's a good idea. It's like a credit card, you don't want to max it out. It's the same thing with our borrowing. But we have an opportunity, and we should see if it's a good time to invest in a new city hall. So I'm going to support to go to the borrowing board. To conclude, you remember since 2019, we thought about renting, and then you thought you might want to build a new city hall, but it's been 2 years that we have not presented you with a 10-year plan with all the projects. City Hall, it would be a big investment. On the last plan, we had it at $2.5 million. This figure has never been revised for a number of years. At least having a figure to work with, whether to buy this one or to do something else, build a new one or rent. At least we be able to build all the other projects that you will judge to be important in our plan. I think this is an exercise we should do in February and March, and to include all projects that will give you a better picture of the situation right now. With City Hall, you took a decision in November that we would build with $8 million if it goes ahead. And then we can build on the rest on a 10-year plan. And then you can change your mind anytime during this process and go to another option, but at least you would have a 10-year plan. Thank you. Is that it? Councillor Paul Boudreau and then Councillor Bertin. I have a question, Régent, for borrowing. If you borrow the amount that you were discussing tonight, and we're not going to go to construction after we go through all the studies, this money, can it be used for another project? No, you have to re-qualify for another project, so you cancel this borrowing by a motion. I sent it to the province, and it's erased from the registers. Then we have to re-qualify for another project and then submit it to the province. So when is the next time to ask for a borrowing? It's every month except for July and August. So next June or whenever. Yes, thank you. Councillor Boudreau. Councillor Bertin. Good work, everybody that's worked on this project. I'm concerned of the amount of $7 billion debt. I've been living in Shediac for many years now, and I always found that the town kept its figures very strict and were very careful with their expenses. And then all of a sudden, we're going to make big expenses, and we haven't really examined everything closely. For the new building, there's not very much parking, so they say, oh, we'll go to the the fire hall, but that's reserved for the firefighters and they need their parking. The space isn't very big. We'll put the city into debt for $7 million and not look at the other projects. Some we said that we wouldn't do. So we're not going to go on a project to stop flooding, and that would be a 3-4 year project. This building, as mentioned tonight, we could borrow, but why don't we look at the company that is selling the building? We've had water flooding, but a new building will have the same problems too. And people talk to me and they've said, well, why are you in such a hurry? We can go ahead more slowly and think about it more. I know I voted for it, but when I speak to people in the community and the people around this table, people are saying we should go ahead, but I think we should look farther ahead and tell people that we're going to give them a debt of $7 million tomorrow. I don't think I agree with that. So that's my point of view. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Good work, everybody. I agree with what Councillor Bertin says. To know that we could borrow any month, I don't know why there's a rush to go to the borrowing board right away. As Councillor Bertin, I voted unanimously in November to look about getting a new city hall. It was impressive, but after talking to different people, a councillor to represent these people, I must listen to what they say. The pandemic is lasting a lot longer than we had hoped, and we have businesses in the municipality are struggling a lot more than what we know, and we know that they're having difficulties. I don't think we should be in such a hurry. We should think about it more, and if we have to think about buying this building, we're already here. It's an icon already. I don't think it would cost $5 million with what Councillor Laura said, the amount that we need to buy. There'd be a little bit of a leeway to renovate. We could do it 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and maybe we wouldn't even have to borrow to do renovations. We could pay for it as we go along. I'm not comfortable to go very quickly to the borrowing board. If we not debate construction tonight, I have notes here that I really don't have to mention. I could save them for another time. But I'm not sure, and I can't justify to the citizens that all of a sudden we have $7 million in our hands to spend on a new building. I'm not comfortable with that, so I'm going to vote against this. Thanks anyway for all the work that's been done until now. I thank everybody for their input tonight and in different committees on which you sat. It's helping us. We're expressing ourselves tonight. Councillor Bryan, thank you. Firstly, I hear people talking in the streets, and not one person did not say that they didn't want to us to build. And we've heard people saying one thing or the other. We've heard both sides, but nobody said to me, do not build. That's number one. COVID right now, it's not going to last 20 years. Yes, it took longer than we thought. Yes, it's unfortunate, but if there's one town that manages finances, it's Shediac. And we've even had a surplus last year, even during a COVID year. So I think we should congratulate our management, the directors who did such good work to ensure that we were not into debt. In 20 years, I can see a great increase in our tax base. I think our debts will be a lot more easily gotten if we see that, of course, we don't have the shovel in the earth, but we should be able to start. The other thing council must realize as well, and I had conversation with the municipal manager, if we rent, we still have to go to borrowing to put the portion of that money on our debt. So there's a portion to rent for 20 years or whatever. It's a commitment for 20 years. So our debt will increase because of that as well. And I think that things have changed. I'm going to ask the treasurer, is that true? That is true. It was confirmed by the province. So that means if we rent, it doesn't change our rate of borrowing compared to if we bought. It would still increase our debt. I think we should look at all the projects we're going to do, and I think the process should continue. Like Councillor Jeanne said, there's nothing guaranteeing the estimates if they're out of control. We have to go ahead and we can't. We all said, a lot of councillors that I spoke to said if the figures were too high, so we would have trouble to go ahead with the project. Councillor Laura Galland. Then I think we'll have gotten around the table. What do you think is too high as a price? 8, 9 million? At what point do we stop? $7 million is already high. So we have a very high debt ratio. So I'm going to vote against. And I would mandate management to start conversations with the two companies that own this building to negotiate buying it and to see where we can go with that. There's no hurry. We've got COVID and what Councillor Sylvia Jean-Claude said. We have a pandemic. Businesses might have to close. A quarter of the town is closed up. It's not the time. I'm not saying to go rent either. I'm asking to buy this building and renovate it as time goes on with money that we would have available, and not to put all our money in the same pot. I don't think it's good for the citizens of the town to go ahead with this project. Thank you. For information, when it was mentioned, there were $5-6 million to borrow. We had amounts of $6 and $7 million that we had for our debt ratio. that already went in the calculations of the debt ratio. So there was a margin of $10 to $11 million available for the town. Precisely 20 years ago, when we had the lease, the amount didn't have any impact on the ratio. A new lease would, because the regulations changed. Yes, it should have been taken into consideration. It should have gone to the commission then. It's in the accounting standards. So the debt ratio now is 11.8, just a little under 12. So are you telling me that if this adjustment was made, would it be a lot higher with this situation? I don't have the figures right now. Okay. I know that you were telling me it would be around 17%. So one scenario in administration is what we worked on. Oh, I just had this question in mind. Thank you. Councillor Sylvie and the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sylvie. Thank you, Your Worship. My question was that, is there a possibility to calculate to see if we continue to rent? I would like to see all the figures before us. Councillor Bryan mentioned it. Can we have calculations to see what the debt ratio would be? I don't know what the renting costs would be for a city hall. You mean the cost for the amount now, but that's ending at December 31st, 2021. And after that, I don't know what the figures would be. I have no basis. Deputy Mayor, to be certain, in the debt ratio, all our projects, they're all there. We didn't eliminate any that we had in our 5-year plan. The gas tax project stayed, as I mentioned. There was Pleasant Street that we wanted to look at an option. It could be in 2-3 years. But the other projects had not been discussed in detail. I included those that were mentioned. For the sewers, the storm sewers, and then there's the project for IBA for Main Street. That was included as well. Other than that, there were projects of about $500,000 a year. I was wondering if there was anything we had removed. No, nothing removed from the definite plans. Councillor Jean-Claude, I don't know if I did have the right calculations, but the new building, we've received the cost. I'm looking at these plans. There's 19,400 square feet, and this building, this thing is too big. It's 24,000, 18,000 square feet. I called the real estate company. I was told 18,300 square feet. That's more than 1,000 square feet more. So you have figures that we don't have. Thank you. Councillor Laura mentioned it, so I called the company. Councillor Paul Boudreau, I have a comment before voting. I would like it to be sent to the media the majority of people participating tonight. So your comment in the beginning does not reflect the vote that we're going to take tonight. So my concern is that certain members of council are concerned. There's division, but at least we should send out a clear message to the public and to the media that it's desire of the majority of council, like Jean-Ben Manso. The shovel isn't going into the ground on February 2nd. We're still looking at options. So my concern is that once we pass the vote and our mayor has a fixed position on this project, and that's your position, but it may not be the position of the majority of council. I wanted to be clear, respectfully. Any decision will be sent to the media. I always abide by decisions of council. That's the result. If we make a request for borrowing before the commission, then the file will go ahead. I understand the decision of council, whatever it may be. Thank you for discussing this, for your comments. Resolution moved by Councillor Bryan, seconded by Councillor Comey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand, please. 5. Contrary-minded? 3. Motion carried. That was the only item on the agenda, this resolution. Meeting is adjourned. In a special meeting, we can only discuss what's on the agenda, but as president of the committee of City Hall, I have responsibilities for the firm that's working on the file, and I'm hearing all kinds of things in the room. So what are we doing tomorrow morning? I understand the sense of your question. The vote is in majority to follow the process and to go ahead with the other steps with the architect to follow through the process. That's what I understand. Councillor Boudreau? It's part of the process. The next steps, municipal manager, the next step is to work on the RFP. We'll put it online as soon as possible to get the figures we need, and when we'll have the proposals, the council will study them. That's the process. Finance Director? For such an important amount, I think we need a motion from council to go ahead for tender. It's not urgent at a next meeting, but we won't go to tender before your authorization. Now, you've authorized us to get financing. So we'll need another motion of council to go to RFPs. And it's not on the agenda. No, we will be ready for another few weeks. Councillor Laurent Galland, I had asked as well. I had mandated the council to go ahead and get figures. Did you talk to these companies? If there's a motion from council, I'll do it. Okay, I'll ask council to start having conversations with the two companies that own this building to negotiate the acquisition. I understand your request. However, the item on the agenda is only respecting the borrowing, so that will have to be another meeting. We don't have a second point here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Conseillère Boudreau, Sylvie Boudreau propose.
Meeting is adjourned.